You never forget the morning when everything changes. I was 12. The sun was barely up, just brushing the rooftops of our little Bulgarian village. Birds still chirped like the world was fine. But something felt off, too quiet, like the earth itself was holding its breath. Then we saw them. Men on horses, wrapped in robes too clean for travel. Ottoman soldiers. Their faces were cold, unreadable, like stone carved by war. No warning, no mercy, just force. They moved door to door like merchants, but what they were collecting were sons. They didn't speak much, just pointed, grabbed, pulled. My mother screamed like her heart was being ripped from her chest. Maybe it was. My father didn't scream. He just stood there, hands shaking, eyes glassy, like his soul had already given up. They dragged me away by the arm, and I remember only one thing more vividly than their grip. My little sister, standing barefoot in the frost, holding the wooden horse I carved for her, whispering my name like it was a spell that could stop time. But it couldn't. That was the day I stopped being a boy, the day I became property of the empire. A number, a name stripped from its roots. That was the day I entered hell with golden gates. We weren't alone. There were dozens of us, boys from different villages, tribes, tongues. Some cried, some screamed, some walked like ghosts, like they'd already given up on being human. They didn't tell us where we were going, just walk, and we did for days, maybe weeks. Time blurred when your feet bled through cracked shoes and your stomach clawed for food that never came. Some boys collapsed. One never got back up. They left him in the dirt like a broken sack. No prayer, no goodbye, just dust. At night, we huddled together for warmth. The guards didn't care. They laughed, smoked, sometimes threw us scraps, bones with no meat. But the worst was the silence. They wouldn't answer our questions. They didn't need to. Their eyes said it all. You don't belong to your family anymore. You belong to the Sultan now. I saw a boy try to run once. They caught him. His punishment wasn't loud. It was slow, controlled, clinical. They made sure the rest of us watched. After that, no one ran. No one even dreamed of it, not out loud. We learned early, this journey wasn't about reaching the capital. It was about breaking us before we got there. By the time we saw Istanbul's towers piercing the horizon, most of us had already died inside. They told us we were lucky to be chosen, that we were entering paradise. At first glance, I almost believed them. The gates of Topkapi Palace shimmered like something out of a dream. Marble courtyards, gold accents, perfumed air, servants in spotless uniforms gliding silently across polished floors. It looked holy, like we'd been chosen for something divine. But the smell of blood and soap lingered in the cracks. They stripped us, scrubbed us like animals, shaved our heads, burned our old clothes. "You are reborn now," they said, as if we should be grateful for our erasure. They gave us new names. I wasn't allowed to speak mine anymore. The name my mother gave me, gone. My language, forbidden. My God, no longer mine. They didn't shout, they whispered, controlled, polite, but every command carried a weight that could crush bone. Disobedience wasn't met with anger, it was met with precision. Cold, practiced punishments that didn't spill blood but emptied souls. We slept in rows, ate in silence, were watched constantly. Every movement was monitored, every glance noted. They called it training. I called it disintegration. Some boys smiled, trying to adapt, hoping to be favored. I envied them and pitied them, because behind that beauty, I'd seen what they hadn't yet. This wasn't paradise. It was a machine, and we were being reshaped piece by piece. They called it a school. But schools teach you how to think. Enderan trained you how to obey. We were woken before sunrise, every single day, not by gentle nudges or kind whispers, but by bells that shrieked like they were sounding an invasion. They weren't just bells, they were alarms designed to snap your soul awake and remind you, you don't own your body anymore. The moment your eyes opened, the race began. Cold water hit your face before your feet even touched the floor, not in a refreshing splash, but like a slap from the empire itself. Shock therapy to burn out whatever dreams dared linger from the night. Then came the uniforms, rough, scratchy fabric that felt like it was stitched from regret. It didn't matter if it itched, scraped, or bled your skin raw. Comfort was not the point. Uniformity was. Strip away the boy, replace him with a shadow, And heaven help you if you hesitate. If your button was crooked or your posture too soft, you wouldn't get screamed at. You wouldn't be hit, at least not at first. No, the punishment was colder than that. Silence. A pause in the world around you, like you didn't exist. Isolation in a place already starved of warmth. And worse than all of it, the gaze. That cold, clinical stare from the Agha. He wouldn't speak, he didn't need to. His eyes alone made your heart shrink. Because at that moment, you weren't a boy, you were grain, being measured, weighed, judged, not by your humanity, but by your potential. And just like grain, if you didn't meet the standard, you were discarded. Or worse, used. We learned to walk like Ottoman princes, to speak in whispers, to write, to calculate, to recite prayers in a language not ours. We memorized poetry we couldn't feel, and histories that erased the ones we left behind. But the real lessons were unspoken. You learned to bow before asking questions. You learned to smile when your stomach churned. You learned that pain wasn't the worst thing. They could take your name, your memories, your very sense of self. That's how they made room for the ideal servant. Some boys cracked. They'd cry at night, quiet sobs into their thin blankets. But crying was contagious. The guards hated that. If one boy wept too loudly, we all paid. They didn't want smart boys, they wanted perfect ones. We weren't students, we were clay. And every day they chipped away at us until nothing remained but a flawless, silent statue wearing the empire's face. Day brought discipline. Night brought dread. When the sun sank behind the palace and the call to prayer faded, silence took over. We filed into dorms like shadows. Thin beds, cold rooms. But it wasn't the chill we feared. It was the footsteps. The Agha would come, you never heard him arrive. One moment you were pretending to sleep, the next, his breath was beside your ear, his perfume, his voice too calm, too kind. Get up. No one disobeyed, no one dared. He chose who he wanted, that night, that hour. Sometimes it was for punishment, sometimes it was for something else. No bruises, no screams, just a boy missing until morning. And when he came back, his eyes never met yours again. We told ourselves stories that maybe he just got extra training or that he'd been rewarded, but deep down we all knew what it was. Power here didn't shout, it whispered, and at night it chose the quiet ones, the small ones, the ones who wouldn't fight back. There was no protection, not from rank or innocence. You could be the top of your class, still chosen. You could pray harder than the rest, still taken. And in the morning, everything looked clean again, like nothing ever happened. But we knew we weren't supposed to talk about escape, just thinking it felt like treason. But late at night, under whispers barely louder than breath, the word freedom would slip between bunks like a ghost. Every boy who tried became a myth. There was Murad, barefoot, fast. He ran during morning drills, vanished past the kitchens. They say he made it as far as the second gate before they caught him. The next morning, he was back at his bunk. Silent, empty-eyed. We never found out what they did to him, but after that, Murad never looked at the sky again. Then there was Selim, the bold one. He carved maps under his mattress, talked about the forests, the rivers, the smell of his mother's bread. He even had a plan. We watched him vanish through a laundry chute one stormy night. For a heartbeat, hope lived. By dawn, the Agis were furious. Rooms ransacked, meals canceled. We stood in the rain for hours. When they found him, he was barely alive. They broke his legs, not just his will. He didn't return to the dormitory. They moved him somewhere deeper, somewhere colder. After that, no one spoke of escaping aloud, but I still remember the way Salim looked before he jumped. The fire in his eyes, not madness, not fear. Hope, that they couldn't tolerate. There's a moment you don't notice until it's too late. At first, I held on to everything, my name, my village, the scent of wood smoke on my father's coat. I'd whisper my mother's lullabies into the pillow at night, just to remember how her voice felt. But memory is fragile, and the palace knew it. They didn't rip your past away. They erased it slowly. One day you're correcting a guard who mispronounces your name. A week later, you forget the sound of it. You speak Turkish now, fluently. You walk like they do, eat what they eat. pray when they pray. You stop thinking about how strange the food tastes. You stop asking when you'll go home. And then one morning, you look in the mirror and see someone else. They changed our clothes, our speech, our posture. But the real theft was silent. I caught myself laughing once, like them. I bowed before an aga and felt nothing. No rage, no shame, just muscle memory. That's when I knew. I wasn't just surviving, I was becoming what they wanted. I was disappearing from the inside out. Some boys fought it, some pretended. But most of us, we adapted, because remembering hurt and forgetting was easier. I still whispered my old name sometimes, quietly, in secret, like a prayer. But even that was starting to sound foreign. At first, we were all in this together, strangers bound by the same cage. We trained side by side, prayed in sync, shared stolen bread under our blankets. For a while, that made the cold nights bearable. For a while, we were brothers, and then the palace started playing games. It began with questions, casual ones. Who skipped prayer today? Who spoke their old language? They'd ask it like it didn't matter, like you wouldn't be punished for silence. Then came the rewards, a warmer cloak, a second helping of stew, an extra hour of sleep. And suddenly, you saw boys shift. They'd whisper names to the aga. They'd volunteer answers before the question finished. They smiled more when the others cried. And those who stayed silent, they paid, not with beatings, but with isolation. No promotions, no privileges, no way out. It became a sick game of chess. Every move you made could make you safer or make you next. You started watching your friends differently. Could you trust him? Did he hear you crying last night? Would he tell? I remember when Yasin was caught sneaking a letter from home. He didn't even deny it, just looked around the dorm and whispered, "It was one of you." No one said a word. He was gone by morning. That's when I learned, here, betrayal wasn't a weakness. It was a skill. If this story moved you, don't let it disappear like the names they tried to erase. History isn't always found in textbooks. Sometimes it's buried in whispers, hidden in the cracks of empires, behind palace walls, inside the memories of boys who were never supposed to speak again. So if you're still here, remember him. Share his voice. Let others hear what they tried to silence. Like, comment, subscribe. Not just for the story, but for all the stories that were never told. Let's bring them back to light, one truth at a time.